Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ocumetics webinar. Thanks for joining us for another one of these. We're just going to give it probably a minute or two just to make sure all the attendees have joined the webinar. So like I said, just give it another minute or two, and then Dean will get things started. Again, thanks for joining us. We appreciate having you all here. Thanks.
Sean, are you able to see the Ocumetics logo?
Yeah, it's working great.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it looks like we got a pretty good chunk of the attendees in here, Dean, if you want to get things rolling.
Okay, Sean, thank you. So good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for attending the Ocumetics Accommodating Lens webinar. My name is Dean Burns, for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, and I'm the President and CEO of Ocumetics. I am so thankful for each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us in talking about the accommodating technology that we have. One of the things that I want to emphasize today is we're going to talk a little bit about the results that we have achieved with this lens. It has been a historical opportunity for us, one that took a lot of hard work to even get to this point. I'm starting the webinar with this particular slide because this is a vision of one of our patients that was in our study. And this is how she saw basically the world. She didn't really have the ability to see the smiling faces on the kids that were in her family. She didn't have an opportunity to really venture out of her home because her vision was really, really, really poor. And it was because of this technology that she's been able to be mobile and seeing the faces of her family. She is so excited with her vision, and the numbers really don't do justice for how well she's seeing. So I do want to talk through that and help you guys understand exactly what some of the numbers mean and what it does to a patient's vision. As a objective for the webinar, I want to talk a little bit about what good functional vision is. Sometimes we take for granted because we all see fairly well that we don't know what good functional vision is or to not have good functional vision. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to bring you back to 2022 of what our objectives were to get to this particular point in time and how well we've done to do that. We'll talk a little bit about what the problem is and what our solutions are with our technology going forward, and then we'll talk about 1 month patient data. I plan to leave a lot of time at the end of the communication here because I want to answer the questions that you guys have. Excuse me, I'll be the first to tell you that I am so ecstatic about where we are and where we're going. I'll also be the first to tell you that it took a lot of work to get here, and we have so much more that we want to get done, and we'll talk through that as well. Let's talk about how the eye works. There are many more structures in the eye than what I have depicted on this particular slide, but there are really five things that really affect our ability to see outside of any kind of disease. So there's the cornea. The cornea is responsible for basically shaping the image or the light coming into the eye and making sure that it begins to focus in a very particular or specific area on the back part of the retina. So you have the cornea. You have the iris, which is really the diaphragm in the eye, and it's a very active part of the eye. So it is responsible for allowing the light to come in certain light situations, as well as shutting down and cutting off a certain amount of light. So on a really bright day, it's the iris that really closes down to take away some of that really bright light that's coming into the eye. And by the same token, when we are moving around in dim light situations or maybe even at night, it's the iris that gets really large to let in as much light as possible. So the iris controls a lot of the light that comes into the eye. Once that light comes into the eye, it hits a structure called the lens. The lens is that structure in the eye that actually begins to age and turn into a cataract. Most of you who I've heard from were comparing cataract surgery with that of LASIK. LASIK is a surgical procedure that is actually done on the cornea. So in this particular picture, it's the front part of the eye. It's the outer part of the eye, which is where LASIK is done. On the inside of the eye, we do cataract surgery on the lens, the crystalline lens. And in this particular case, when it becomes inflexible and doesn't move the way we used to have it move, it creates an issue with we can't see at distance, intermediate, and near. Automatically, we have to use aid to do that, like reading glasses, etc. And then when it gets really cloudy, either a hazy looking lens or maybe even a dark brunescent type lens, and light can't penetrate and get back to the back part of the retina, then we have to have a cataract procedure to do that. The film that we have in the eye is called the retina. And so the image gets projected onto the retina in a very specific place, and that place then communicates with the nerve center, the optic nerve, which communicates with the brain, and the brain tells us what we're actually looking at. So there are many more areas within the eye, but from a holistic, easy way of thinking about it, uh, you've got the cornea, the iris, the lens, the retina, the image being transmitted through the nerves and over to the brain so that we can resolve what that vision looks like. So, what happens when a patient has a cataract? Well, with normal vision, you can see depicted here that you get a stimulus, a light stimulus coming in, and in this particular case, it's a field of flowers, sunflowers, and we can see a lot of details with that image. So we can see the color, we can see the clarity of the vision. We can actually see three-dimensionally what that image looks like. But as we begin to develop a cataract, a lot of that goes away. Our contrast sensitivity gets questioned. Our clarity comes into question. Our ability to see three-dimensional details become questioned, and we just don't see the world the same way that we used to. The only way to resolve this is to remove the crystalline lens, which is now cloudy. It's opaque in this particular diagram, but it could be brown, a brunescent kind of cataract. But you can see as the light comes in, it scatters it everywhere on the retina, and we just don't see well. So the patients that we did in our study, we purposely selected tougher patients to do. And the reason we did that was not because we wanted really difficult eyes to work on, but part of our thinking was if we can achieve super good vision in patients that have really poor vision. One, they benefit, but two, it tells us that we can actually achieve uh, really, really, really good results with patients that don't quite have dense cataracts. So if you drill into the picture that I just showed you, on the left, you have an image that is what a patient would see who is 20/80 or worse. And I'm going to go back. I usually don't do this, but I'm going to go back 2 slides because there's an eye chart on my objective slide that I want to kind of point out to you guys. So the line that is TOZ on the chart is 20/80 vision. The line that is FP is 2100 vision, and the line that is where the big E is, that's 2200 vision. Patients that fall in those areas do not see well at all. And when you are elderly and you have that kind of vision, it is very scary not to be able to function and have to solely rely on other people to help you get around, to help you see things. So your quality of life is compromised because of your vision issues. So a patient that is 2800 or worse cannot resolve the eye chart really well. They're considered legally blind because they cannot get a driver's license, and they really have to have someone to help them get through life and maneuver. They don't see images well. The images are very fuzzy. They lose contrast sensitivity, and they lose the ability to resolve images in a three-dimensional manner. If you compare that with what you're seeing on the right-hand side, you can see how vibrant that picture is and how crisp and clear the letters are. When we do cataract surgery, there's a normal healing period. The first healing period that we come up to is 1 month. During the 1 month visit, we expect the patients not to have any kind of inflammatory response, and if they do, it gets resolved very quickly. We expect them not to have any kind of infection in the incision, and if they do, we want to make sure we get on top of that because we don't want to have a infection type situation brewing up under a beautiful cataract procedure. The next period of time is 3 months. And so at the 3 month visit, all of those issues are resolved, and we're now really working with the patient and making sure that their overall vision is getting better and better. And then by 6 months, we're ready to release that patient back out into the world because they really achieved their best form of vision at the 6 month period of time. If you compare that with a younger patient who has undergone a procedure called LASIK, which is a laser procedure on the cornea, typically those patients resolve very quickly, no less than 1 to 2 weeks, and they see really well at that 1 month mark. These patients are different because LASIK is on the outside of the eye, where cataract procedures are on the inside of the eye. And so we have to take into consideration healing of the internal structures of the eye versus that of just the cornea with LASIK. All right, so back in 2022, we came out with a statement of what we were trying to accomplish with developing an accommodative IOL. There are 5 principles that became our guiding direction with the organization, and they are 5 principles that we still stand by with everything that we're doing with the OcuView accommodating lens. Number one is we wanted to develop a accommodating lens that would give a patient the accommodating amplitude to allow them to comfortably read. That's really important because we want to make sure that we're giving a patient the ability to see in the distance, intermediate, and near very well. We wanted to make sure that if we excited the eye and it went into an accommodating state, when it came out of that accommodating state, which means that's near vision that we're looking through, and we want to go back into our distance vision, we wanted to make sure we had a lens that disaccommodated as quickly as it accommodated. That's a safety issue. And imagine if you're riding down or driving down the road, you're looking in the distance, and all of a sudden you need to look at your instrument panel. That's intermediate vision. So you go from a distance focal point to a medium focal point, or you had to pick up your phone and look at something, that's a near focal point. We wanted to make sure that the eye or the lens that we put in the eye would go through those focal points very quickly. That's a safety issue because if you're going through a cloudy media, as you go through those 3 focal points, that creates a safety issue if you're driving. The other thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we had a very crisp image without compromise. So we have ways to view that when we actually make our lenses, but we wanted to make sure that we didn't compromise on the clarity of our lens. We wanted to make sure the patient was safe, and that's safe from disease, safe from infection, safe from inflammation. And then the final thing is we did not want to create a lens structure that had toxic substance as part of that lens structure, which some of my competitors have done with silicone oil being put into the interface of their lenses. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? Well, the problem is as we get older, we lose sight. So it's an age-related issue. If you live long enough, everyone gets a cataract. Nobody gets a pass on developing a cataract. Some actually are delayed, others are really early. I had a cataract early in my eye, and I wish I had the ability to take advantage of technology like the one that we've been developing at Ocumetics. The first condition, which happens at around 45 years of age, is that you lose accommodation, and that's just the natural ability to see in the distance, intermediate, and near without you even thinking about it and without having to have aid to do that. The aid that we typically point to are standard reading glasses, and they start at zero point 0.5 and they go all the way up to 3 or 4. And it just depends on where you are on that continuum as to what type of aid you need. Once you get past 45 and you get into your 60s, 70s, and 80s, you begin to develop a cataract. And basically, that structure that is no longer flexible is now cloudy. And here again, it could be opaque, white, or it could be something that's more brown, so a brunescent type cataract, and it gets really hard. And we have to remove that in order to restore sight. Now, here in the US, we don't have that problem because we routinely do cataract surgery. It's got about a 98% success rate, so it's the most successful surgery that's out there. But in less developed countries, they don't have access to this type of technology. And so some patients go blind because they don't have the ability to take advantage of surgery and products to resolve their cataracts. We are fortunate here in our developed world to be able to take advantage of it. What's the solution? Well, the solution is simply create an accommodating structure that mimics the natural movement of the eye to give a patient the ability to see in the distance and see up near without even thinking about it. The picture on the left-hand side shows a patient looking in the distance while driving and possibly someone looking near at a cell phone um, in the picture. But we wanted to have high quality optics. We did not want to fill this lens with toxic substance, and we wanted to de-risk this entire project by making sure that we did not have side effects associated with our technology. The typical side effects with today's technology is glare, halos, ghosting. Sometimes it requires a secondary procedure to open up an opportunity where you don't have light scatter. So we wanted to make sure that we created a technology that did not have those side effects. And we accomplished that with this technology and with this lens. On August the 18th, we sent out a press release announcing a historic first. It was the first time in Ocumetics history that we had successfully implanted this lens in a patient's eye. Now, I want you to think about that for a second, because up to this particular point in time, everything that we did was either on the bench or with a rabbit or animal model. In this case, we use New Zealand rabbits to do all of our studying. So we studied this lens on the bench. We went into our animal studies using New Zealand rabbits. And so we did our safety study there. We then decided to go ahead and manufacture the lens in the diopter power that we would be using for the study. And we successfully manufactured those lenses, which we did that out of Mexico. We wrote a protocol and we got it approved through the ethics committee in Mexico for us to do human studies at their hospital. We recruited the patients, and then finally we actually implanted the lens in the patients that were part of the study. This was nothing short of anything other than a miracle, excellent planning, and being at the right place at the right time with the right surgical facility, staff, and the surgeon to allow all of this to work really well. On October 8th, we sent out a report talking about our 1 month postoperative results. And some of you actually sent me some emails because you didn't understand what 2040 meant. 2040 is not a failure. 2040 is a fantastic result. And I'll show you why here in a couple slides. But when we went into surgery, we had a plan of we needed to study safety because I just told you that a safety profile was done in an animal model. We had to prove that we could put this lens in a patient's eye and the patient would do well. So we had to look at safety and safety first. We had to validate that the patient could see in the distance at 1 month. And so keep in mind, our plan was distance, intermediate, and near vision as we heal through the process. And we were able to demonstrate and accomplish that. And then the last thing is we wanted to make sure that the doctor and the staff could actually work with this technology and put it into one of their patients and then be able to manage the patient through the healing process. And we were able to accomplish that. So on average, our patients achieved a visual outcome that is 20/40 or better. That wasn't all patients at 20/40 because we had patients that were actually much better than 20/40. They were all the way down to 20/25. But on average, we had a patient that was 20/40 or better, and that's kind of how we have to report out the results. The patients are extremely happy with their vision, and they're extremely happy because they're no longer handicapped. They're extremely happy because they're functional. They can maneuver through their homes. They can go to the grocery store. They can get in a car and take a ride and appreciate the scenery. They can see the faces on family members, the children that are in the family. They are extremely happy with their vision. In fact, here are two patients that were a part of group one, and it was the first patients the doctor did surgery on. So one is 69, almost 70. The other is she is 80 now. The image on the left shows the hospital that we actually did our surgery at. The gentleman in the photos, that's our doctor, Dr. Vasquez. And the interesting thing about these two patients on post-op day 1, they walked in, and if you look over his right ear, left on your screen, you see things that are written on the wall. When the patients came in, and this is just one day after surgery, they were reading the signs on the wall. They had big smiles on their face because for the very first time in quite a while, they could actually see and be functional in seeing. In fact, the patient on the left of the screen was reading her makeup box one day after having surgery, which is just remarkable. The patient on the right uh, uh, is enjoying her vision. She's 80 years old, and her thing is she loves to go to the market to buy things that can be cooked at home. She wasn't able to do that because she didn't feel comfortable doing that. Both are really mobile, but they just couldn't see. Now they can see. The patient on the right-hand side who's 70, 80 years old goes to the market with her daughter. She loves the ride because she can now look out the window and enjoy the scenery. She loves going to family gatherings because she can see the faces of her family members. And when you think about that, that's really why we do what we do. This is short of remarkable with a technology that was just on the bench a year ago. To be able to put it in a human patient and have those patients really, really, really do super well. I hope everyone is not squeamish about surgical footage, but the image on the right-hand side of the screen shows you how the lens sits in the eye. Now, we have enhanced this image with those little dots to show you the lens implanted in the eye. Those little dots and those little feet are what we refer to as haptics. And what they do is they anchor the lens in the eye so it doesn't move. We don't want the lens to move, excuse me, once the doctor puts it physically in the place where it needs to go. You can see this is a blue eye patient because the iris is dilated. And I just mentioned to you earlier, the iris is responsible for managing the amount of light that comes into the eye. When we undilate this patient, that blue iris will actually cover the haptics. And if you're looking at the patient, you won't even see the haptics. So we've enhanced it so that we can actually share with you what the lens looks like when it's implanted in the eye. But I tell you, we could not be happier with how these first patients are doing. So I mentioned to you that when our patients came in, they had really poor vision. And the poor vision, I showed you this chart up front, was in that 2100 to 2080 area, which is the FOP and the TOZ areas, or 2 and 3. After surgery, the worst patient we had ended up with 20/40 vision. And the way we look at it is we count the number of lines in between where they were and where they are. So this patient picked up 2, almost 3 lines of corrected vision, which is remarkable because it now allows them to be functional. So the 80-year-old has 20/40 vision, which means if she drove, which you don't want an 80-year-old driving, but some do, she could go get her license because she has functional vision that no longer puts her in that blind category. As we enter into 3 and 6 months, it's our expectation that these patients will be down in that 7-8 range. And so the FEL line is 20/25 vision, and the DEF line is 20/20 vision. So it's our expectation that our patients will be in that range for the first group. Keep in mind, we still have group 2 and 3. And every time we do a group of patients, we sit back and say, how can we make it even better? So we're not just resting on the fact that we were able to put this in a patient's eye. We're resting on, we put it in a patient's eye. Now let's evaluate how we actually even make it better. We know these patients are happy. We know these patients are doing really well. But before we go into the FDA multi-clinical study, which is 13 sites around the world, we want to make sure that we go into that study with the best possible lens that we can actually go into the study with. Because we know that once we get into the study, if there's something that we need to change, we have to stop the study, make the change, and start the study all over again. That's pretty expensive. And so we don't want to do our R&D on patients. We want to do our R&D back in our design studios. So we work on it. We work with the doctor and plan it. We work with the doctor and basically answer questions on how we can make it better. And then we go to the next group. So where are we going from here? Well, I have been invited to a ton of engagements. I am in Orlando, Florida right now. I live in Atlanta. I'm in Orlando, Florida right now to attend the American Academy of Ophthalmology meeting, where I have been invited by Johnson & Johnson, Alcon Vision, and Bausch& Lomb to come and talk to them about the successes that we're seeing with our accommodating lens. These are the biggest companies in the industry that have looked at, heard, and want to talk through how we are doing what we're doing. They are super excited about our results. And I have the pleasure to be out in front of the organization to represent us here in Orlando. 2 weeks ago, I was up in Toronto at the CEM Capital meeting in Muskoka. And during that meeting, I had an opportunity to talk with almost 30 investment banks and um, um, different investment groups about our technology and where we're going and how we're going to get there. We talked about the results and uh, Ocumetics, out of the 48 companies that were represented, there were only three life sciences companies, but we took honors being represented as one of the top companies at that Congress. So out of 48, we were number 4 or 5. And that was an incredible feat because we had never been at that conference, but we have a compelling story and we have really good results to actually back that up. And so we were able to take honors at that meeting. And then when I get back on October 22nd, I've been invited to be a part of a panel at the Maximum Growth Summit, which is going to be at the Hard Rock Cafe in New York, talking about where we go in the industry, if you will, of ophthalmology. An accommodating IOL structure has been the holy grail. Everyone has been working super hard to come up with a technology that works. There are 14 companies that are in this space. Of the 14, 6 are in human trials, and we're one of the 6 in human trials. I already know of 2 of the 6 that have actually failed in their human trials. And there are a lot of things that you can point to for failures, and it's not my position to promote who's doing well and who's not. It is my position to promote that we're doing really, really, really well. And I could not be prouder of my team and happy with everything that they have done. And I extend my team down to the surgical group in Mexico City, who actually did the first implantation for our first in human study. And things are going really well. And I'm super, super proud and excited to be out in front and representing this. During the week, I received a number of congratulatory emails from doctors actually around the world, believe it or not. And I put a couple things in here because I wanted to showcase that not only are the patients happy, not only is the staff in Mexico over the moon about the results that we're getting, but doctors around the US, Canada, and some that are down south of here in South America, Mexico specifically, are over the moon about this because we have been in such hot pursuit as an industry to get here. Dr. Kruger states in his information, and I just took an excerpt out of what he sent me. It says, this accomplishment represents a major step forward for the field, and it sets a new benchmark for the novel innovation of accommodating intraocular technology. Dr. Kruger is one of those, and he's a professor and chairman of ophthalmology at the University of Nebraska Medical School right there in Omaha. Dr. Kruger, if you Google his name, he's considered the doctor's doctor. So he's the one that has been involved in pretty much all the really cool technology that has hit the field of ophthalmology for the last 30 years. He originally was at the Cleveland Clinic, and now he heads up everything right there at the University of Mexico Medical School Center. Dr. Vance Thompson is up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and he's been around this industry forever, as you can imagine. And he writes, these early results are very positive, especially when you consider the fact that these cataract surgeries were in patients with more advanced, dense, and difficult cataracts. So these lenses were really difficult. And now we're at a point where we know that when you do a difficult patient, the healing is longer, but it's exciting when you think that we did a difficult patient and we took that patient and moved them to where they have really good functional vision. Their quality of life is totally different, and they are ecstatic about where they are, only knowing that they're going to get better. Dr. Mark Lobanoff is up in Minnesota, and he's one of the thought leaders. He's a young guy. He's one of the thought leaders when it comes to refractive and cataract surgery. And he says uncorrected visual acuity of 20/40 is considered to be functional as 20/50 or better is required by most states to get an unrestricted driver's license for a safety study. And keep in mind, safety was our primary objective of this study, as well as distance vision. Um, but when you start looking at a safety study, these first results where we have done no harm to the patient, we've made their quality of life even better, are remarkable and good. And so when you start looking at just doctors looking at what we're doing, they're super excited about where we are. And the industry is now beginning to represent Ocumetics, which is that small company that was just up in Vancouver for 18 years, just doing research. But the industry is now reaching out to us to have us come in. And here again, I get to be the guy to represent the organization, but to have us come in and tell them how we are doing it. And I could not be happier with our situation, knowing that it's patient first and these patients are doing extremely good. So where do we go from here? Well, you can see these young people with smiling faces. This is what one of our patients actually had an opportunity to begin to see. Babies being born, toddlers running around, the faces of kids trying to smile with that growling kind of look, playing soccer or football with playmates at school. That's what our patients are seeing. And this is 20/40 vision, guys. That's why 20/40 in a very difficult patient is nothing short of remarkable. And I am so happy, and I will stand behind everything my team does and the results that we're getting from our technology. The interesting thing is we are not stopping here. We're moving on. We're going to take this technology to the next level. I've told my team that being first to market is not the most exciting thing for me. The most exciting thing is to be the best in the market and to allow innovation to drive that. So if we can make it better, let's make it better. If we can change it and change the process of how we put it in, let's do that. We're going to innovate up and down this technology. And as I said earlier, I'll sound like a broken record. I could not be happier and proud of my team for what they have accomplished. So, with that, if you have any questions or want to talk to anybody about investments, here's the information that will be up on the website that you can actually go to. And Sean, if you can hear me with that, I am going to stop sharing and go to answering any questions that anyone has.
Awesome. Exciting stuff, Dean. It's always great to get an update on where we're at. So yeah, like Dean said, if you guys have any questions for Dean, go ahead. It should be at the bottom of your screen. You can access the Q&A function on Zoom. You can put your question in there, and we'll try to get to as many as we can.
I'm going to take a drink of water real quick.
Please do. You've talked for long enough. You deserve it. Hopefully the Q&A section is working. We only got 2 so far. There's usually like 100 in here. But yeah, so yeah, put them in there. We'll try to get to all of them as well as we can, but I'll just get started here. So the first question here is from Tom. He's asking if a patient has had a prior surgery, like a laser surgery, like Smile or PRK, does that affect their ability to get the Ocumetics lens?
No, no, because it's a different part of the eye. So even though you have had a refractive procedure, which is what Smile is, that's on the outside or the cornea of the eye. The cataracts on the inside, and the thing that the doctor will have to do is to take into consideration what your vision is with Smile, match it up, and do the calculation so that we can get the right lens to put in for your cataract procedure.
Gotcha. We got another question from Martin. He's wondering if there's any restrictions with the Ocumetics lens regarding night vision at all.
No, actually, um, unless you have something else going on with the eye that would prevent you from not seeing well at night, you have no restrictions with this lens at all. And one other thing, Sean, that I'll mention, we designed and built this lens so it would not have any nighttime visual disturbance issues like light scatter, glare, halos, etc., which are things that you see with today's current technology because they have these annular rings in the surface of the lens, which deflect the light a little bit different, or it scatters the light a little bit different. We don't have that because it's a nice spherical optic.
Gotcha. Okay, here's a question from Henry. He's just wondering, he's looking just for some clarity, no pun intended, on the 2040. So he's wondering, how does that affect like multifocus?
So the number that we shared is the distance number. When you start looking at multifocality, there is another number that goes with near vision. So we are reporting out our distance vision, and patients, usually when they get into the third month, we start looking at what is their near vision, and there's a number very similar to 2030, 2040, 2020 for near vision. And the way we usually say it is we will say the patient's distance is 2040, but their near is 2020 or 2025 or J1. It's a different chart that we look at to report out that vision. And we have not reported that out yet because we want the patients to be a little further down the pathway with healing before we actually start reporting on near vision.
Got you. Here's another one from Ted. He's wondering what the diopter range for the Ocumetics lens is.
Yeah, so Ted, we can actually develop and design a full complement of lenses that go from from 19 diopters all the way up to 30. With the hospital in Mexico, we asked them what is their common range, and we manufactured lenses specifically for their common range so that we didn't have a ton of inventory that we couldn't do anything with. We have not done our age stage studies for sterility shelf life. So we didn't want to produce a lot of lenses only for them to expire because we don't have sterility past 6 months. But we can make the full complement of lenses from 19 to 30. And our lenses are designed to get at least 3 diopters worth of accommodative amplitude.
Gotcha. Okay. Here's a follow-up question. This one's from Jordan. They're wondering what diopter would 2100 and 2080 equate to?
Wow. Um, well, first of all, if a patient had 2100 and 2200 following surgery, we'd have to really think of a different type of technology to put in their eye. Because the other thing that we would have to do is to calculate the length of the eye, which is from the corneal plane all the way back to the retina. So we would have to calculate that to make sure that we had a diopter that could bend the light and get it on the right part of the retina. So a patient that has that type of vision after surgery creates a different kind of challenge with the calculations, which is totally different than if they started there and when we took out the cataract and put a different lens in, they're now 2020, excuse me, 2040, 2032, 2025, or 2020 following surgery. And the only thing that we're managing through that process now is healing. That's a different surgery. So we would have to really do some unique calculations to calculate a 2200 post-surgery patient or a 2100 post-surgery patient.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, Here's a question from John. He's wondering, so he says, cataract surgery has become quick and effective and inexpensive. How does that compare to the Ocumetics lens
Yeah.
implantation?
Yeah. So our lens implantation is basically the same as other lenses, monofocal lenses. So it's usually a 15 to 25-minute procedure. So we don't affect that. It's very quick and easy to put this particular lens in. It's very easy to load this lens in the loader to inject it in the eye. So our lens did not change that dynamic. The other thing was our lens does not change the way or the approach that they do surgery. So everything really stays the same. It's just implanting a different technology in the patient's eye.
Okay. I'm just gonna try to find something that's along that line as well. Okay, we can move on to some different type of questions. So this one is from Mark. He's wondering what the timeline is for the first in human, like the second and third groups, what the timeline for those would be.
Yeah, so when we put the study protocol together, we gave ourselves basically 18 months to get through all the patients. It's a 30 patient protocol, and we have a pause period in between the three groups so that we can actually address any concerns or questions about how the lens handled, how the patients are doing. Should we optimize the technology to do something different? So we have that pause period in between there to make sure that we can do that. But in terms of a lapse time, it's 18 months.
Got you. We got another question about the human trials from Tom. He's wondering if any other countries will be involved in the next set of clinical trials.
So the short answer is yes. The next set of clinical trials is we refer to it as the pivotal trial for the FDA. Sometimes I refer to it as the multicenter trial, and we will have locations in Canada. So there will be two locations in Canada. There will be three locations in Europe. There will be one location in Mexico, and we will more than likely have seven locations in the US. So
Cool.
that's the 13 sites.
There's a question here from Mika. She's asked, I don't know if we're allowed to disclose this, but she's asking how many patients have been involved in the first round of first in human.
We're not allowed to disclose that.
I figured. There you go. Um, Sorry, we got a lot of questions here. I was trying to put them into categories, but they're going to get a little random.
No, that's
Um,
okay. Just keep going. I
we'll
did
just
that
go.
quickly so that I could answer all the questions.
Perfect. Here's one from David. He's just wondering if there's like what the level of pain experienced by patients would be, if any.
Yeah, so cataract surgery is so routine now, and pain management associated with that is so good that it's typically topical pain meds that are administered by a anesthesiologist, and then the patient is managed in terms of comfort, anxiety, and stuff like that with IV sedation. So the patients are really comfortable when it comes to the surgery.
Cool. Here's a question I can answer. This is from Derek. He's just wondering about our Director of Investor Relations, Dave Burwell's contact info. So Dave can be contacted at his Ocumetics email address. So that's dave.burwell, Burwell, at ocumetics.com. And if you want to go find that for later, you can always go to the investor section of our website. Just click on the newest press release, and you can find his contact info there, including his email and his phone number. Um, so, yeah, that should be pretty easy for you to find. Um, okay, here's a question from Lawrence. He's wondering about just meeting with the other manufacturers. So, would the long-term goal be to sell the lens through them, or would it be for them to buy the company?
Okay, so those are two entirely different strategies.
Yeah,
So so when you do a technology sale, you retain the ability to do other things like make more things. So we could actually sell the tech off to one of the other manufacturers and develop another lens behind there because we do have more than just one design. This just happens to be our first. Or we could do an M&A deal, which the larger manufacturers could just basically say, we just want to buy the company. So it really depends on the company, where their R&D pipeline is, and what their tolerance is for different deals. And you don't know that until you actually get into a meeting with them and you start talking to them. My suspicion for the invites is twofold. I used to work for Alcon, and I was on the M&A team. So the BD&L team, I was a part of that. And typically they will only invite you in for one of two reasons. One, if they want to look at your technology and see how theirs lines up because you will be a competitor to them. Or two, if they want to make a strategic play for you while you're early in the cycle. And I don't know which way these companies are leaning. What I do know is I've made myself available for 3 1.5 hour meetings with each to talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. I've got NDAs in place with these guys, so we can have some really good discussions here over the next 2 or 3 days.
Got you. Okay, here is a question from Sylvester. They're wondering how the early results in terms of the visual acuity for our patients, how that might compare to the other accommodating IOLs at kind of this stage of the healing process. Not sure if you can expand on that.
Um, so most of the other companies that are in human trials have not really disclosed their results. That should tell you something. Uh, I was comfortable enough with where we were that I wanted to shout as loud as I could shout about how well we did. Uh, there are companies that have not disclosed that information. I'll give you a perfect example. Um, there's one technology that's also in Mexico, not the same hospital, but also in Mexico, which is a accommodating technology that they've only done a few patients, but the challenge that the lens manufacturer has is their lens, their optical system is so large that they have to make a really huge incision just to get it in the eye. Well, we all know, or at least in my field, we know that the larger the incision, the longer the recovery. And when you put sutures in the eye because you have to tie them, it actually creates tension on the cornea and it distorts the vision. So if you've got all these dynamics working against you, why would you even talk about your results? So there are only 6 of us, and we keep tabs on each other pretty well. And like I said, I was just so thrilled with my results. That's why I was willing to share them. I'm not bashful about our technology and what the team has done. Team's just done a fantastic job, and our surgeons done an even better job with managing these patients.
Makes sense. And yeah, so we've had quite a few other questions kind of about where the competition is at. I think that pretty succinctly answers most of them. We have a lot of questions, common question just about, when we might expect FDA approval, and then when this might be available to the general public.
All right, so let me tackle that while you look for some other questions, okay?
Yeah.
So the timeline that I've put together is 18 months in our first in human. We need first in human experience so that we can go to the FDA and do a pre-market type application. It's called an ID application. ID stands for Investigational Device Exemption, IDE. We have to get approval from the FDA because we're going to come into the US with an unapproved technology and we need to take it through its paces. When you enter into the FDA journey, it's a 3-year journey basically. It has 3 phases attached to it. And the smart thing is to get the FDA to allow you to do as many eyes as you can right up front. So we have to do 350 eyes. The FDA will tell us how we disperse the 350 eyes over 3 phases. Typically, they'll say, hey, do 10 eyes in phase 1. Well, I don't want to do 10. I want to do 50. And I want to do bilateral implantation. And so in my first in human study, Sean, group 3, we will do bilateral implantation with group 3 patients. The reason we want to do it in first in human is it's kind of like going to court. You don't want to go to court and ask the question that you don't already have an answer for. So if I'm going to ask the FDA to allow me to do 50 patients bilaterally right up front, I better know how these patients will do and how that lens will perform. Well, I can do that in my first in human. It's almost a penalty-free environment to do that in. When I get those 50 patients done and the data gets approved and we get to move to the next level within the FDA structure, I can take those 50 patients and CE mark this technology around the world. So I can do early commercialization with the Ocumetics platform once I've got phase 1 patients done. So it allows me to begin to bring a lot of value to shareholders. It allows me to bring revenue into the organization. It's just all around a good strategy and place to be. Then I can accelerate through phase 2 and get as many lenses as I can get done in phase 2 and use phase 3 just to do all the cleanup. The thing about an FDA study that everyone doesn't understand is the FDA doesn't really care that you do everything fast. It takes 3 years to get through their journey, their process. So it's a 36-month journey. I've been through it a number of times, 15 approvals, but I've been through this journey enough times to know how I can maneuver a little bit and not short circuit what we're doing, but how I can actually help the company navigate through it and get to an early commercial state while we're trying to get approval from the FDA. So 350 eyes over a 3-year period of time is the process.
Cool.
The commercialization time frame, it's not the date, it's just the time frame, is 29 or 30. So 2029 or 2030 with the possibility of early commercialization in 27. So that gives you the whole
Gotcha.
picture in the timeline.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, here's another question we get quite frequently. It's just people wondering how they might be considered to participate in the clinical trials.
Yep.
And I suppose obviously you need to live in the country where we're doing the trial, but if you could just speak a little bit to how somebody might be selected for one of the trials.
Yeah, so typically what happens is the manufacturer, the company, picks the location where the trial is going to take place. And so we pick the doctor's office in whatever the country is that's going to participate in the trial. And then what the doctor's office will typically do is they will send out some kind of communication. So it could be radio, TV, it could be something printed, it could be a billboard, basically saying that we are participating in an accommodating IOL trial, and we would like to hear from you to see if you're interested in being evaluated as a candidate for the trial. So typically, and we'll just use Canada. I feel comfortable talking about Canada. Um, in Canada, I'm going to have 2 sites. I'm going to have one in Vancouver and one in Toronto. So if you live in the middle part of the country, you get an opportunity, if you want to travel to either one of those locations. But the thing that you have to sign up for is not free surgery, but it's going through the test regimen that comes with the free surgery. So the regimen is 1 day post-op, 1 week post-op, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. And when you're in an FDA trial, it goes beyond 6, it's 9 and 12. So you got those 5 big endpoints that you have to come in for your follow-up visits. And so we'll have one location in Mexico. I'm not sure exactly where, But if you don't live in Mexico and you live in Central America, you got to travel across the border to get there. We'll have 7 locations in the US. If you can go from Canada through Detroit and get into the US and you qualify, you could be a part of if we have something in Detroit. So we'll announce the locations. We'll actually put that information out on our website. But whether or not a person is a qualified candidate is really between the doctor and the patient.
So here's a follow-up. This is David is asking this. So would you have to have a cataract in order to be considered?
Yeah, so so if you don't have a cataract and you want to take your lens out, that's called a clear lensectomy. We can't do that in an FDA study because we are studying those patients that have cataracts. And so our recruitment will have to be a patient who has gone through the evaluation process and their doctor has deemed them to have a cataract. There's a grading system that actually goes with the lens. So they could say this is a +1 or maybe it's a +4. And so if the patient makes it through that grading scale, then they potentially could be a part of the study. But if you're just doing a clear lensectomy, uh, that's not going to fly on a study like this. Once we get commercialized, we can take anything out, but not through
Good
the.
point. Good point. Okay, a little bit of a different question here. I think a lot of people are really interested in our meetings with some of these big companies.
Yep.
What kind of timeline would it usually take to, get some more information about what comes out of those meetings?
Yeah. So, and I'll use Alcon as the example because they were the first to reach out and say, "Hey, can we talk to you?" Um, Anything that we communicate to the public at large will have to be communicated through a press release. And because we have 2 entities involved, we would have to get permission from, say, Alcon to do a press release that basically says, hey, we met with Alcon and here was the topic. The timing for that, um, it actually could be pretty short, within, say, a month or so. But the approval on the language, the approval on the press release would have to go through both organizations, should we decide to do that. And that's where the time element comes in. I don't know how long it would take. For us, we could approve it very quickly. We run pretty lean and mean, but for the larger strategics, they have to go through a lot of different departments to actually communicate something out. So um, I'm pretty excited that we got the invite. Typically, it's a smaller company trying to maneuver its way in. In this particular case, we didn't have to do that. They actually reached out to us. And so we have the ability to uh, be able to go in. And I don't believe that because I'm not presenting, I'm just in a meeting. I don't think I have to do a press release on that. I'll talk to Cynthia tomorrow, maybe. Um, but if I'm presenting, I know I have to do a press release. I'm not presenting here. I'm just having a meeting. So
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. I mean, obviously, we all want to find out
no,
what happens, but there's a due process to everything.
yeah,
Okay, here's a interesting one. Just asking about our stock listing.
yeah.
What are the possibilities that we might uplist to the TSX from the venture, or potentially on Nasdaq one day?
I'm working on that right now. That's actually a really good question. I'm actually working with an attorney, and I'm also working with a finance person who actually specializes in uplisting on the Nasdaq. One of the hurdles that we had to overcome was our market cap had to be higher than 125, and
Right.
we're basically at 150 right now. We're somewhere in that range. So that was the biggest hurdle we had to overcome, and so we're there. And I'm working on uplisting, and my strategy or my goal would be to list on both. So we'll stay on the venture, but we'll also uplist on NASDAQ and then eventually drop one versus the other. We can't take advantage of US big money when it comes to investing unless we get to the NASDAQ. And so we're working on that right now as we speak.
That'll be pretty exciting. Um, okay. Another one here. This one's from Garth. He's just wondering, so as far as when the product will be publicly available, does that become available to most countries at the same time, or is there a bit of a rollout? So, for example, he lives in Australia.
Yeah. So we can launch a couple different ways. One is we can do what's called a general launch, which means that it's just randomly available to any country that has already provided us with the regulatory approval. Or we can do a soft launch or slow launch and have targeted countries that we want to go to. So you had mentioned Australia.
Yeah.
Okay. Australia would be one of those countries we would want to go to early. So early commercialization there. And the reason for that is they have a very, very, very friendly regulatory process. So we could get the product registered in Australia pretty easy. So when I do early commercialization, let's say somewhere around 27, I'll go to Europe first because the 8 major markets in Europe are under one regulatory body. So it's easy to do Europe. CE marking actually came out of Europe. So it's easy to do Europe first. Australia is second on my list. Uh, the northern part of South America, Central America, and Mexico would then be next. And then anything outside of that, we have to really, really, really look. It's hard to get into Asia. I don't want to go into the Middle East because I'll spend whatever few dollars we have trying to protect our patents there. They'll steal the patents. I will not go into Russia or China because even though they say they respect those laws, they really don't. And they'll steal our designs. And the only other area that I would have to really, really work through would be other parts of Asia. So Korea, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brazil, Canada, some of the other larger markets, they all index off of FDA. So they don't let you do early commercialization until you get your FDA approval. So I already know who those countries are. And so I won't even spend resources to actually do that until we actually
Fair
get.
enough. Fair enough. And this kind of segues into another question here, just about you talked about kind of protecting patents in those, you know, less lawful type countries. Would there be any risk of the technology getting backwards engineered, or is it not even close to that kind of thing happening?
Yeah, so our IP is really, really, really good. Dr. Garth Webb, in the 18 years he's been researching this particular area, did a fantastic job with putting us in a really good place with IP. So we have 49 patents around the world. Three are provisional patents. The others are what we refer to sometimes as utility patents, and they're all registered in the countries that we would even want to do business with. And I just said I didn't want to go into Russia, but we do have our patents uh, uh, in Russia. So we're registered in Russia with our patents, but our IP is really, really, really tight. And for those of you on the call that are not familiar with patents, you can patent a product. So you can say this bottle of water has a patent on it. Or you can patent the process by which you create the plastic, put the labeling on it, you got a certain bottle cap that you put on it, and you fill it a certain way. You can actually patent that whole process. And that's what we've done with three of the provisional patents. We have a patent on the entire process. So to reverse engineer it, you're probably going to hit some part of the patent and we will shut you down because that's the heartbeat of the company is our patents.
Makes sense. Cool. That's interesting stuff. Okay, just kind of again going a little scattered on these questions, but this one is from View. They ask, can the Ocumetics lens be replaced without damaging the eye?
Okay, so the question is very vague. I'm going to have to take some liberties here.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
So was the first part, can it be removed?
Yeah, basically, so once it's implanted, can it be removed without damaging the eye?
Yeah, so typically the way we remove, it's called an explant. The way we take a lens out, let's just say the wrong power got put in or patient doesn't tolerate it. The way we typically take it out is we segment the lens. So we cut the lens inside the eye and we pull the segments out through the incision because the way we get the lens in the eye is we fold it into a taco. And that taco goes through a really small incision with our injector technology. So the only way to get a full lens out is you have to cut it up into segments because you can't go back in the eye and fold it as a taco. So the technique to do an extraction is pretty well known. And um, the patient doesn't get hurt. The eyes don't really get hurt. Um, but it is involved because you have to get it loose and disassociate it with the tissues that have bonded with it, cut it up, and then remove it and then replace it with something else. So the short answer is we know how to do it. Doctors know how to do it. Uh, it's a little bit more involved than just pulling it and snatching it out of the eye, but it can be done.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, okay. Here's a good one from Victor. He's just asking what the potential market size for the
Oh,
Ocumetics lens could be.
great question. So the lens market is a $4.5 billion market. I expect our technology to be the majority of that market because we have other lens designs that allow us to fill in whatever the patient needs are. So I expect us to be a 60 share player in that bigger market. The cataract segment of the market is 1.2 billion. The refractive lens part of that is a 1.7 billion, and then what's left over is basically the monofocal part of the market. I believe if we price this lens right, and I've got a pricing strategy for that. We've done some elasticity studies to try to hone in on what our pricing is. But if we price the lens right, we can actually own the $4.5 billion category for the Ocumetics franchise of lenses. We can't do it with just one lens, which is why we have to go into the bigger part of the market with all the things that we actually have in our bag.
Gotcha. Okay. Here's a question just about the vision that we can expect. So um, what percentage of patients would we expect to have to achieve 20/20 vision with the Ocumetics
Well,
lens?
yeah, so when you get into the FDA pivotal trial, that's the one where you really have to push the vision and make sure those patients are seeing well. You don't do that really in your first in human. What you do in your first in human is you try to hone in on the technology, make it the best that you can actually make it, and get it ready for the bigger study. In the bigger study, we will have optimized the lens design. There's a calculation that has to be done to determine what diopter power of lens you need to put in the eye, both for distance and near. And there's this thing called an A constant, which is part of how well that lens refracts. We don't even have a constant with our lens. We actually had to use the Alcon A constant, which is actually a really good A constant, it's 118. Um, but as we put our lens into more patients, we will be able to develop our own A constant. And so that factors into the calculation. So most patients in the bigger study, most doctors will only allow patients that can be refracted to 20/20. So the best corrected vision would be 20/20. Those are the patients that we want in the FDA study
Right.
because that's a claim that we want to be able to make as well.
Good point. Okay, here's a question from Danny. So they're asking if we've had any feedback from the first in human patients on maybe the time it takes from accommodating to unaccommodating. Do we have any feedback on that at all, or maybe we're not allowed to speak on that?
Uh, well, I can speak broadly. We don't have any feedback yet.
Okay.
So that's kind of the broader answer. It's my guess at the 3 month window, we'll be able to speak about that. And that's something that we're actually looking forward to because at the
Right.
end of the day, we want to make sure that patients can resolve images in the distance, intermediate, and near. So that's something that we'll certainly be looking forward to.
Fair. And I think it's good just to kind of remind people that we're limited in the information we can give out at this time. I think there was a couple other questions kind of along that line. So obviously, stay tuned. We'll have a lot more information coming out about these trials as time goes on. So yeah, just either we don't have the full information yet, or we're limited in what we can say at this time.
Yeah, and let me just comment, do a yes and to what you've just described. Um, I don't mind getting the information out because I'm actually proud of what we've accomplished.
Yeah.
But until I press release it, I can't talk about it. It's not that
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. I have to press release it first. We're
Yeah.
forward-facing public company, and I have to use that vehicle to get whatever information out that I can. And so if we seem evasive, it's not because we either don't want to say it or we have the information, we don't want to share it. We have to press release it first, and then we can talk about it as much as we want to. So, Sean, that's a good point. I just wanted to overemphasize that we have to use the process because we are a publicly traded company.
No, I think it's important just to clarify that. You said it a little bit better than I did. Um, okay. Let's see here. I mean, we're still getting a lot of questions just about the potential to partner with some of these bigger companies. Um,
Well,
so
let me make just one general comment about that.
yeah,
When, and here again, I was part of a large company. I retired from Alcon. When the company reaches out to you as a little bitty minnow in this really big pond and says, hey, come in and talk to us, that's a really good sign. That is a very good sign. And the potential, I would say, is as high as anything else that I've looked at, because I know these companies organically, they can't develop these technologies in their own shops. They usually have to grow in certain areas through acquisition. So the opportunity to partner is pretty high, but you have to have the right mousetrap that they're really interested in. And I have a unblemished record in ophthalmology. I've released so much technology that these guys all know me and they feel comfortable with me. And I'm here to say that this thing is the real deal. I have not been this excited. I tell my wife all the time because I walk around the house with a smile on my face. I haven't been this excited in a long time. And I've seen the best of the best. And I've been a part of those acquisition teams, the M&A teams, and this lens is the real deal, which is why I'm happy to represent it.
I think a lot of us are pretty excited.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I think a lot of these questions are kind of concerning, like, what's the plan? And I think, um, you could probably speak more to this, but the plan is to do what's best for the stakeholders of the company. And we're going to review whatever opportunities we have in front of us and make the best decision when we have more information in front of us. Um, I think that's pretty obvious. But maybe you can speak more broadly to, when would an acquisition or a partnership kind of come together? Would it be during the clinical trials? Would it be closer to that FDA approval? When would that generally happen?
So typically and so I'll just speak from past experience being on the M&A team. I won't speak as the CEO of Ocumetics, but I think I can get you an answer.
Yeah.
Um, Typically, you want to go out and form what's called a strategic partnership with a early clinical technology. So it's usually when they're in first in human, kind of in the middle, maybe finishing up, um, putting their documentation together to go into the pivotal trial. You typically want to make a strategic investment in companies at that time point. And we're talking significant dollars. So we're not talking a couple $100. We're talking significant dollars of what we refer to as preclinical mergers. Uh, to do the preclinical and do the investment, most of the companies will ask for a right of first refusal. So they'll ask for a ROFR. All that stuff gets press released. Strategic partner with the first right of refusal. So that all gets press released. And as you are going through your pivotal trial, so the very first part of the pivotal trial, phase 1 and phase 2, you'll finish up all of the paperwork so that you know either you're buying technology or you're buying an entire company. All of that gets press released. So the organization is not going to do anything that puts our shareholders at risk. And it's not a good deal for our shareholders. The shareholders for Ocumetics, I am just so impressed because they were here before I got here. And these are some of the most loyal shareholders I have ever seen. These are individuals that bought into the company early on when it was just a bench science project. And now it's in a patient's eye. And so my expectation is we will know something actually sooner than later. And we will know something at a level where we can press release it that basically spells out what that relationship's going to look like. These guys, instead of spending, upfront half a billion dollars, could easily write a check for $100 million and do a strategic partnership and say, okay, $100 million, we'll give you 50 million now, but we'll put 50 as a bonus based on milestones. And those milestones could be X, Y, Z as you're going through your clinicals. And as you hit those milestones, we'll give you more money. If you do early commercialization, we'll give you more money. And then do the ROFR at the end where they do the valuation, they know what the technology is capable of doing, and they say, okay, we've already given you 100. We were thinking about giving, and I'm just making up numbers, by the way, guys, everybody. These are made up numbers. But we given you 100. We were thinking about half a billion, so 500 million. So now we owe you 400 million. And you do the deal, and everyone is happy. And then the shareholders get, you know, their slice of love out of that. Because everything's going to be based on we got 125 million shares outstanding. And it's not inconceivable to me that our stock won't go to 250 or $3 a share. So now if you just do it strictly off of shares outstanding, we're talking 350, something south of $400 million or more, because we could do a deal as a multiple. So there's a lot of what if stuff that can take place. I don't I like thinking about it, but I don't like communicating that because anything can happen. But I tell you, we are feeling pretty good about where we are. And I am super excited about the position that I'm in and the fact that I'm being invited to the dance party by the prettiest girls out there. So, that's my that's my thought on where we are right now.
That's great. I love loving that analogy. Okay, and so I mean, you kind of said those are kind of made up numbers. Would we be able to say or come up with a ballpark for what phase two, phase three of the study? What would be what would be we be looking to raise to complete those?
Are you talking the first in human, or are you talking the pivotal FDA trial?
I guess both.
Okay. So, as a startup company, we're always looking to raise because we have to make sure that we shore up cash flow, because that's the only way that we're going to get to the end of the finish line is we have really good cash flow. So far, so good, but we're always looking to put those relationships into perspective and into play. Going into the pivotal trial, we know that it's going to cost a tremendous amount of money to go through the FDA because there's two things that we have to do. One is we have to go through all the clinical stuff, and on average, it costs about when you do all the math, it's about $30,000 a patient to go through a clinical. So it's not a insignificant amount. It's a very significant amount of money. But when we get into the FDA pivotal trial, the other thing that we have to do because we don't have sterility data is we have to do it's called an age study where we have to manufacture almost 10,000 lenses. We have to take all of those lenses, put them in boxes, and sterilize every one of them. And we can't touch them because we have to do the age testing so that the FDA will give us 1, 2, or 3 years worth of shelf life on those lenses. I'm asking for 3 years. Once we get that, we can use that inventory to actually commercialize, but we have to manufacture every one of those lenses. That's an ISO standard. We don't get a pass on it. So the cost to do the pivotal trial is so much more than the first in human because we're only talking 30 patients in the first in human, and we're doing 6 months shelf life on the lenses that we've produced, which everybody gets 6 months. So we're taking advantage of our 6 months. And it forces us to actually think through our raising strategies because we have to raise money to get through the pivotal trial. We're okay for right now with the first in human, but the
Yeah.
pivotal trial is what we have to raise money for because we have so many more things that we have to do.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Okay. Kind of more back to the surgeries and the lens here. There's quite a few questions here, so I'll kind of hit you more rapid fire. But the first one is just asking how the accommodation speed of the Ocumetics lens would just compare to the natural speed of the natural lens in our eye.
so we don't have a slow motion camera to clock it. That's something that we want to do when we are in the FDA trial. But what we do know is we designed our lens with a material that has a lot of kinetic energy in it, and it moves very quickly. So we have a silicone, but there's two materials that you use to make intraocular lenses, silicone or acrylic. The difference between the two is you can see really well with both technologies, but acrylic tends to be very manageable. It's like a flower opening up. It's very slow. It's very controlled. Whereas silicone, it has so much kinetic energy. When you open it up from being in a taco, it wants to go boing. And then when you push down on it with the muscles, it rebounds very quickly. So we'll look and come up with some kind of testing that we can save from compression to not. Here's how fast you go from a distance state, which is compression, to a near state, which is where the two lenses come apart. We'll measure that. Um, the key here is just to make sure it does it really fast. So you don't have to go, so a patient doesn't have to go through a blur zone when
Yeah.
they go into, the high energy state for distance and a low energy state for near. You don't want them to go
Um,
a blur state.
right. Is accommodation speed something that can change with age?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A child, not only has more amplitude, but their body, the biokinetics, because the tissue is really healthy, it's young, moves very quickly. Think of it like uh, um, running. A younger child can outrun an older elderly person because they have flexibility, the muscles are younger, they can do things, the bone density is not a problem. So, yes, there's a difference. But the thing for us is we want to make sure it's adequate and it's safe.
Yeah.
And we're the only company that's actually talking about disaccommodation, by the way, which should tell you something as well. If they won't tell you what the results are and they won't tell you what they're looking at in terms of disaccommodation and accommodating, that should be kind of a sign of how they feel about their technology.
Fair point. Okay, there's a couple of questions here just about, potential side effects. Would there be any potential side effects we're looking at after implantation, including stuff like lens capsule clouding?
Okay, so lens capsule clouding, sometimes referred to as a secondary cataract, so PCO. It happens pretty much with everyone. It's the amount of cloudiness that actually occurs that will force a doctor to do what's called a YAG laser. And so YAG lasering a lens is something that is normal and natural with cataract surgery. The cool thing about it is we took ours through a YAG test to see that if we had to YAG our lens, would it perform really well? And the answer is yes. And we have the test data to show that.
Okay, gotcha. Um, Here's another one. This one's from Lawrence. They're wondering. Um, so they say they've heard that some IOL procedures can increase the likelihood of retinal tears.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So, would the Ocumetics lens be any different than that?
Well, what typically creates a retinal tear is a prescription that is really, really, really high. So a -5 on up. So if you're a myopic patient and your script or your vision is a -5 and above, the chances of a retinal tear is pretty high. So if you're that type of patient, you'd have to really, really work with your doctor to make a determination as to the risk associated with that. The interesting thing about a retinal tear is you can fix a retinal tear. So you can do it. First line of fixing that could be with a laser. So you just kind of weld it back to the place of where it tore. Um, but it's usually associated with either how long the eye is and what your prescription is.
Gotcha. Okay. Here's a good one we always get. How long is the Ocumetics lens expected to last once it's implanted in a patient?
Forever. It's it's
Exactly.
it's designed to carry that patient into their demise. We actually do it's called fatigue testing on the lens. So it's if you think about car manufacturers how they do shake and rattle, roll things with the cars and stuff. We actually fatigue test our lenses. So, we make sure that the mechanism of action can withstand the number of times it has to collapse and go to the middle and then go to full extended. And it's designed to last that patient forever.
Gotcha. Here's a question just about like the control lens being used in the study.
Yes.
So, can you just elaborate on what that lens is exactly?
I won't tell
The
you the
control lens?
Yeah, I won't tell you the company name, but I will tell you it's a monofocal lens. And
Okay.
monofocal technology has been with us forever. It's well understood. It's been approved through the FDA for quite some time. And we selected the control lens uh, that has the line share of commercialization. So it's the lens that is predominantly used in cataract surgeries when a patient is either requesting or needs a monofocal lens.
Gotcha. Okay, there's a few questions just about the customization of lens for different patients.
Yep.
So I guess first of all, can you just comment on how we would go about customizing a lens for certain patients, whether they be younger, older, or what their vision is like?
Yeah, so the very first part of uh, customizing a lens is understanding the refractive error that the patient has. So are they myopic or are they hyperopic? Is it one diopter or is it five diopters? So we have to go through that, and then we make the calculation to uh, select, because we don't design. So it's not like we are making a contact lens. We select the lens that's as close to their prescription needed as humanly possible. And that's the lens that we actually put into surgery. Now, if the patient has, let's just say, astigmatism, during cataract surgery, we can do two things to correct astigmatism. One is we can do on-axis surgery so that when we do our primary incision, we actually correct the astigmatic nature of the eye. Or we can put them under a laser and do laser incisions to correct the amount of astigmatism. And so we put a lens in that will correct the sphere, and then we can do work on the cornea to correct the cylinder. And so the whole surgical procedure is actually customized, but I don't like to use the word custom. I like to use the word personalized. It's personalized for whatever that patient's condition is.
Makes sense. Okay, we always get a couple of questions about this, but it is quite interesting. So, just about the potential for a lens to be better than 20/20 vision, if you can comment on the potential for that.
So it's not the lens, it's actually the eye that drives that type of performance. So if the eye is very healthy, with the exception they have a cataract. So they don't have an issue with the retina, they don't have any issue with the cornea or the iris, and you put I'm going to call it a high performance lens in the eye, the chances of being better than 20/20 um, could occur. Now, that better than 20/20 is 2016 or 2015, 2012.5. But that's well below the 20/20 line that I showed in the presentation. And you're starting to approach where we used to call it eagle vision when I did refractive surgery. And so when a patient gets into that level or that area, sometimes they don't like their vision because you end up seeing stuff that you normally would not see. So I would think as a benchmark, um, 20/20 is considered the gold standard in vision. If you get beyond 20/20, I don't know if uh, the patient would be what I refer to as 20/20 happy, because they're beyond 20/20, but they're seeing things that they didn't see ever. And now they have to get used to that type of vision. And it takes some mental gymnastics to get there. So you have to adapt to it. Could you get there? Absolutely. Anything's possible. I just don't know if a patient would be happy with that.
No, it makes sense. It sounds cool in theory, but you're right. I don't as a clean freak, I don't know if I'd want to be seeing all the dust floating around in my house. Okay, just getting to some of the final questions here. Um, so this person just asking for some details on just how uh, the vision was tested on the first in human patients.
Okay.
What did that look like?
Okay. The question I would ask that individual is, are they an eye care professional? Because the way we test vision is Ocumetics actually purchased a clinical study system that gives us the ability to take the patient through the 21, 22, or 23 different tests that they have to go through. And part of that is contrast sensitivity. We have to take and make sure that the pressures are really good. So visual fields, we have to put them behind a device to see how well left or right in both eyes they can resolve the eye chart. So we take them through a lot of tests. So we just don't let them come in and say, hey, tell us how well or how poorly you see. We actually take them through a whole bunch of tests, and then we refract the patient. And when you refract the patient, you actually get a chance to see what their refractive issue is. And then you try to correct for that to see if you can actually push that patient to 20/20, or how far can you correct? It's called best corrected vision. How far can you push that patient to best corrected? So there's a whole host of tests that we take these patients through before we select them in the study. Part of the reason we do that is we want to make sure that whoever we select into the study has the best possibility of achieving the best vision that they can. The other thing is we want to make sure that we don't put somebody in the study that's going to tank our results. Because keep in mind, we're trying to get FDA approval. FDA is not going to approve you if you have bad results. And so we make our doctors really do a extensive analysis or evaluation on the patient. Because if they don't qualify for the Ocumetics lens, then they could qualify for a standard monofocal. That's not bad, but we want to make sure that if they qualify for the Ocumetics, they have the best chance of getting the best vision they can get. So it's a ton of tests.
Fair point. Okay, there's a question here from John. He's just wondering where he might find a more thorough technical explanation for the technology. Um, I don't know if that'd be available on our website. John, you might have to contact us through the website if you want something very in depth. But I'm not sure if you know where the best place to get that would be, Dean.
Um, it's in a spot on our website that you have to have special permission to actually see it.
Right.
Uh, my hesitancy with the question itself is I'm trying to understand. John, call me.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go
Yeah,
about it.
just call me because um, I'm not going to, in an open forum, share with you technical details about our technology. One, because it's just not good use of the time. But secondly, that's the secret sauce in our technology. We want to maintain a competitive edge. And so if I give you the secret sauce of how the food is made, then you've got it. And I have no more leverage over the industry because I've given it out. I need to understand a little bit more about the why behind the question. I may even have to do an NDA behind this type of conversation. And we typically do that, particularly when we have somebody who wants to invest a little bit more into Ocumetics. We do an NDA. We don't mind sharing this information, but we have to do it under lock and key, and we have to make sure that we protect our investment. Keep in mind, we have 18 years worth of experience trying to create the best mousetrap. Why would we just tell everybody how we did it if there's no advantage to us, no advantage to our shareholders, and no advantage to our patients? Now, if you really just want to read anything in depth, you can actually go to the website and just pull up the patents.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Well, and I think if anyone wants to, read things in layman's terms or understand things from a beginner's perspective, you could start on our investor presentation. That can be found in the investor section of our website. I think that goes over kind of anything you would want to know from a beginner standpoint. But yeah, like Dean said, if you really, desire more information, it doesn't hurt to contact us. Uh, just reach out and we'll help you as best as we can. Okay, so just coming to the very end of the questions here.
All
This
right.
one's from Nick. He's just wondering if adjustments can be made to the lens once it's implanted, or how you would go about, um, would you need a new lens to have an adjustment made?
So there's only one technology currently available that's adjustable. And so that's the Calhoun technology, or the company is RX Sight, and it's the light adjustable lens. And what that technology is you hit the lens with a laser, and when you do, the frequency of the laser actually changes the refractive property of the lens material. All right. If we have a miss or anyone else has a miss with the technologies we have to do an exchange, or we have to do a procedure on the cornea to get the patient where they need to be. So it could be a secondary procedure to get the patient where they need to be if we miss in the lens calculation. Oftentimes we don't miss, but if we do miss, we do have a way to fix it.
Right. Okay, this is pretty much come to the end here. I think this is a good last question, just on when we might expect the first in human trials to end and the pivotal trials to begin.
Yeah, so I mentioned to you we started the human trials with an 18-month runway. So it will be the end of 26 for the first in human to end. It takes about 3 months for the FDA to give us approval for the pivotal trial.
Yeah,
And so once we start, we will try to go as fast as we potentially can, but the process is going to be 36 months. So we will try to make adjustments with number of patients, where we are in the different phases, early commercialization, but the process journey is basically 36 months. So,
perfect.
all right,
Okay, well,
Sean,
I
I'm
think
gonna
that's
wind it
it.
down. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there was quite a few questions just about kind of more specific investor stuff. There were some questions about stock options and warrants related to the private placement. Um,
Can
what
we
I
get
would
those
say,
questions to Dave?
I was just going to put Dave's information up on the screen. Those kind of specific questions are best addressed by our director of investor relations, Dave. So I'm just going to put that up on the screen right now. His contact info is right here. Hopefully that's working.
Well,
Do
we
you
see.
see that, Dean?
Well, I see your screen, your
Okay. It's
homepage.
it's this one. Does that work?
Oh, there you go. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm just going to zoom in on Dave's information here. It's right here. So yeah, like I said, if you have any specific questions about investing, about stock options, warrants, even our stock exchange questions, just please contact Dave. He's kind of best suited to address those. Other than that, if you do have any other questions that pop up, feel free to contact us through our website. As always, these webinars are posted to YouTube the following day. So if you want to go back and listen to anything, you can find it on our YouTube channel tomorrow. Um, Other than that, yeah, thanks for attending another webinar, and I'll leave it to Dean to close things out.
John, thank you so much for your help. As I mentioned early, guys, I am just so thrilled with what my team has been able to accomplish. But more than that, I just feel for the patients that their quality of life is so much different since they have undergone the surgery, and their ability to see has literally changed their life in a lot of different ways. And so I couldn't be happier for the patients. We know that we're doing the right thing. We know that we're doing something good. I get to wake up each and every morning and tell my wife that I have an opportunity to help people see better. And that's what this whole thing is about. We are learning so much through our first in human, so that when we get to the FDA pivotal trial, we just breeze right through it, and that gives us the best landing opportunity to actually get this thing FDA approved. One closing comment that I will make with you guys is that most companies don't get to this point in time. They either run out of money or they fizzle out because their technology just flat out doesn't work. We don't have either one of those issues. We have money in the treasury right now, and we have a technology that's actually working. And what makes it even that much more rewarding is every time I go to Mexico and every time I'm in surgery personally, because I am surgical trained, but I'm in surgery personally with the doctor and these patients, and it just warms my heart to know how well we're helping people out, and the fact that it shows up in their attitude and their behavior, and in some cases, their step, because they came in pretty handicapped. So I'm just really thrilled about where we are, and I'm thrilled to have you guys as part of our investor family. And if there's anything that I can do to shore up things with you guys or answer additional questions, I don't mind setting aside time to do that. If you want to talk investment strategies, Dave's a good person, and Dave knows how to get in touch with me to get me on the phone if we need to do that as well. So on behalf of the Ocumetics team, Sean and myself, we want to wish everyone a great rest of their evening, and thank you so much for attending the webinar. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks, Dean. See you, everybody.